I would like to welcome everybody to class today. Hopefully you had a great fall break and you're all excited to get back at it. If you look at our agenda page today, you'll see that there are two main parts: our academic notes, where we're going back to our e-portfolio, and then the second part will be moving into the body paragraphs of your analytical essay. So, e-portfolio. Salt Lake Community College put together a really informative video on what an e-portfolio looks like. Although it's 8 minutes, it's certainly worth your time to review and take a look at some of the sample e-portfolios that they've had. You'll notice when you watch the video, it focuses on what each of these 5 sections of the e-portfolio should contain. For this week, in some of your extra time, I'd like you to focus on the welcome page. And what I've done at the bottom in the teacher notes is include some sample e-portfolios of students from the past. Unfortunately, we did our e-portfolios in Weebly, and as I've mentioned to you previously, that the district has now blocked the sites at school, so we won't be able to look at them at school, but certainly take some time at home to look over the contents and get a feel for what your welcome page should look like. These are all excellent e-portfolios. All right, and so, one other thing I want to point out with the agenda, you'll notice in academic notes, the third bullet says conference sign-up sheets. This morning I took the link of our conference sign-up sheets and put it in another place that will make it easier for you to sign up for Friday conferences. And so that's in Canvas. In the extra information at the top, there will be a link to the conference sign-up sheet. So take advantage of those sign-ups for Friday, since you have a major paper due next week. All right, so all of you should be here today with a really good introductory paragraph, actually 2 paragraphs. Remember, your introductory paragraph includes the overall gist of your essay plus a summary paragraph. So on this slide, there are 5 bullet points that I'd like you to, if you are at home, look over your introduction and make sure that you have done each of these 5 things clearly and concisely for a reader. In class, we are actually switching papers and looking over their introductions to make sure that that thesis is solid, so that as we transition into the body of the essay, each student will know where they're headed with their report. All right, so now, what do you do to start a body essay? You've got lots of resources available for you. There is a sample essay in Canvas. I've included a link to 5 sample student essays that we will actually be using in class. And then, of course, your resources that you received at the beginning of this unit has lots of content available for you. So let's cover the slides and see how they can help you write a solid thesis. Sorry, not write a solid thesis, but follow your thesis that you've already written. Remember, a thesis predicts what the rest of the paper will look like. And so look at the sample one on the right-hand side of the page and pick out the what, the why, and the how of that thesis sentence. Then go to yours and make sure that you have done the same thing. By understanding what, why, and how, we can actually predict what any essay content will be about. So for this one, I'd like you to access this, predict what the essay is going to be about, and then turn in your student resource booklet to this sample essay and see if that's what the writer did and followed the prediction made in the thesis. So for you, as you build body paragraphs, you need to remember that there are 4 parts of every body paragraph. Of course, a topic sentence that supports the overall thesis or claim in your introduction. Then some attributive phrases, and what I mean by that is you lead into your evidence that you're going to produce. Often those attributive phrases can be sentences. So you'll notice the sample one on this slide, there's actually 2 sentences that lead you into the evidence. Then, of course, you've got to pull things from the text, original text that you are analyzing. You can do that by paraphrasing or quoting, and that's called the proof. And then finally, remember this is an analysis essay, so what you're doing here is discussing the proof that came from the text and why it worked or did not work to help did the writer actually achieve his or her purpose. So see how that's done and how a paragraph is put together. This sample that you're looking at has 2 proofs in the paragraph, which is a good way to build each analysis paragraph. These next 2 slides give you a lot of background that will help you with this unit and our upcoming research paper unit. This slide talks about why in the world do we actually quote in a rhetorical analysis. And it's done by Harvard. And if you click on the link here, it will take you to a website that is so in-depth. It's divided into 5 or 6 different subtopics. In class, we're actually going to have each student click on it and then go to one of those subtopics to get a good foundation of why we are quoting in rhetorical analysis essays. I want to encourage you to look at more than just one, however. They did a really good website to explain that to you. This one is an article that was written by one of the teachers on SLIC's campus, and it talks about how to integrate sources into your paragraphs using different strategies. Most of you have, in either middle school or in some of your high school classes, have learned the phrase ICE, where you introduce a quote, you cite the quote, and then you evaluate the quote. This is set up the same way, but they use it in a sandwich form. So if you open up the article, you'll be able to walk through explaining how to introduce a quote in 3 different ways, with a seamless integration, with signal phrases, or with actual full sentence introductions. And if you use the full sentence introductory style, make sure you follow it up with a colon. And you can see the sample that is on this slide. They use that 3rd element. But it's great. They use the analogy of a roadmap to help you understand how to integrate quotes well. What we're going to do in class with this one, I'm actually passing out to the students some student sample essays. If you are at home, I've attached that file to in your resource sections for today's lessons. Please print those student samples and then get out some crayons or highlighters. You'll notice there are 4 of them. The first thing I'm going to have you do is find the thesis you're going to pick 3 essays of the 5. Find the thesis, highlight it in red. Once you've done that, I want you then to move to the body paragraphs of these student samples. Using your red highlighter or crayon again, highlight each body paragraph topic sentence in red. And then the next one in blue, I'd like you to use that color to see how they led into the evidence, the attributive phrases or the attributive sentences, how they lead into a quote. And remember, in the ICE strategy, it would be to introduce a quote. So that's done in blue. Then with your yellow crayon, I want you to look at the evidence that has been added from the original text and see whether or not the student quoted or paraphrased the information. And then finally, I want you to use a green crayon to color the analytical part. If you do this for 2 body paragraphs for each of 3 essays, you'll get a good feel of how to build your analytical body paragraphs as well. One thing that I hope you notice is that if it's a good essay, the majority of the paragraphs should be green. Why? Because we're writing an analysis essay. So don't be afraid to have multiple sentences in your analysis part. So finally, I'm going to turn the time over to the students in class to work on their body paragraphs, and I will actually take a score on their coloring activities. So if you are at home, when you come back, you can share that with me just really briefly, make sure that you got a good feel of how to build those body paragraphs. But remember that our next class session will be October 8th, and you will come to class with your really good rough draft completed. The other thing for conclusions, how to wrap up a paper, I'd like to encourage you all to go back to your samples in your research or your analytical packet and look at how different people completed their essays. You can look at the student samples as well. So your homework again is to have a solid rough draft for peer review for our next class period, which will be on Monday. So hopefully this helps with your lesson. And if you have any questions, please contact me. Thank you.